Hello, my ageless friends. I'm going to go over intermittent fasting for fat loss and what I use at 50 and what I've learned in my 40s and 30s, moving into my 50s, and how I utilize it myself and how my clients have utilized it for fat loss. Rapid fat loss in some cases, especially you have to lose high amounts of body fat, even if you only have to lose 5 to 10 pounds of body fat. I say only because that's still a lot. And as you get lower and lower down in the amount of body fat you have to lose, the harder it is to lose. So intermittent fasting can be a big part of your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond of controlling body fat accumulation around your organs, around your belly fat, oblique fat, back fat. You know my three. I say five, but three. I feel like it's five, but it's seriously utilizing intermittent fasting pretty much at any age, but how it can be just one of the greatest tools you can use in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond. So, how I utilize it, how I've started off on it. I started off by I stopped eating. Like, let's say I started it today. I would stop eating at 6. And then at that 6 o'clock meal, that last one before 6, I try to eat it before 6. So I go really into fasting at that point. Is I eat a small meal. It's higher in protein typically, lower in fats. I don't need all that fat going to sleep 3 hours later, and very low in carbs. Now, but it's balanced. Okay, typically it's about 500 calories. Good portion of them, like I said, are high in protein, clean protein, good fiber, and just a mixture of healthiness. So by that time, okay, from 6 o'clock when I'm done to 6 o'clock the next morning, that's 12 hours. And then I started at a 16-8 split. So getting up at the 6 o'clock moment, that is 12 hours, right? So I would add on 4 hours to that. That would be at 10 o'clock. So 10 o'clock would be 16 hours of not eating. So what I started off on an 18-6 split. I didn't eat until noon. And in between waking up and noon, I would always have anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 steps in, whether it was a walk for 30 to 45 minutes most mornings. And then I would actually do, the indirect walking, talking on the phone, brushing my teeth, getting ready for the day without sitting down, and just moving until I got to the office or wherever I was going. That in itself, combined, that walking and moving without calories taken in, other than the only thing I was doing, drinking water with electrolytes in it, coffee without any cream or sugar. Normally I'd sweeten it with a couple drops of stevia if I did do that, and green tea, and sometimes lemonade, but without sugar, of course. I say lemonade because it was lemon water with cayenne. But that system right there, that protocol in itself with intermittent fasting and walking, and it was incredible. I was burning a lot of calories before I even ate my first meal. So my body was not only going into a fasted state between that 16 and 18 hour mark, where it was it can start pulling from the reserves that are around my waist, or wherever it starts off at, it's just reducing the body fat. And then I would transition into a 20-hour. I went from 19 to 20 hours over a week period, to where that following Monday I was on a 24 split, meaning 20 hours of not eating, 4 hours of eating. Going and not eating my first meal until 2 o'clock the next day, which would have been 20 hours for me. And that was the perfect scenario of me walking almost 8 to 10,000 steps before then, typically. And then after that, I would be at, I would eat meals. I had that 4 hour eating window where I ate 2 meals with 75 grams of protein each, with my fats, carbs, eating them in that order. I would have collagen coffee with no just collagen in itself. And I would have 2 protein snacks, and 25 grams each. So I would have 200 grams of protein and then the breakdown of the rest of my calories were 2,250 calories, I would break that down accordingly. But I was getting, and they were all clean for the most part, all clean calories and then moving into that, and then I would do it. I did that for an entire month, and then at the end of that month, I did a 24-hour fast on a Friday. I always remember that. I did a 24-hour fast and jumped right back into the 20 and 4 split. And I lost a tremendous amount of body fat doing that and getting to 12,000 steps a day. And then I eventually ended that month at 15,000 steps a day doing a 24 split with a 24-hour fasting period at the last Friday of that month. So I went a 60-day window. That was 14 pounds of body fat that I lost during that time. I lifted all but 8 times, but not really heavy, not crazy. But that protocol started with an 16-hour to 18-hour, fasting period, and then a very small eating period. But getting my calories in those moments and moving forward into how I wanted to get to my end goal, and that was to see my six-pack, is to see my abs again. But that's how I utilized it, and that's how I incorporate that into some of my clients' lives slowly. Some of us are more can adapt quicker, but I've learned to utilize the 16-8 as a go-to all the time. I normally don't eat until noon every day. I stop eating at 6 or 7 at night, so I give myself that 17, 18-hour fasting window, and then I don't eat my first meal until noon or 12:30 the following day. But this is a great protocol to follow. Your body starts doing things at the 24-hour mark, or even at the 18-hour mark, or 16, 18-hour mark, where it's just you can see it. When you see it happening and it pulling from the reserve, especially if you've got your calorie deficit where it needs to be in a healthy way, you're 300 to 500 calories less per day, but you're increasing your amount of steps. I'm not talking about going out and doing tons of cardio. I'm not talking about doing HIIT training. I'm not talking about going, lifting 4 or 5 days a week. You can incorporate that in there, but my goal, again, your goal should be reserving muscle, protein high, fats there, because you need it to, you need fats, clean, make sure they're clean fats, and then low sugar, not no sugar, but low to no sugar, and then carbs, not no carbs, but clean carbs that you can have energy from and eat them in a small window. You can plug any diet into a caloric deficit. I'm not talking about eating junk food either. I'm talking about just balance it. You can plug any diet, keto, vegan, carnivore, whatever diet that you really want to put into there, you can make it happen as long as you're in a caloric deficit, but utilizing intermittent fasting as one of the fat loss scenarios, so you can see the muscle. So when you start gaining muscle, when you start gaining even 1, 2, 3 pounds, it's so noticeable. It becomes so noticeable, and intermittent fasting becomes that stack on to the caloric deficit. And eventually, you're going to get to a point where you don't need the caloric deficit. You can be within a range and still keep on, but increase your expenditure of energy by lifting weights, doing yoga, being active, going on more walks. I don't know, taking classes, taking, where you're, doing cardio, jump back into bike riding, tennis, basketball, whatever it is that you want to incorporate into that, just becomes a part of the overall. But stacking intermittent fasting, the caloric deficit, and walking at times where you don't have meals or even after your meal, so you keep your insulin levels down. Because as bad as we can think insulin is, when we hear insulin spikes or insulin's not, we make it the enemy. It doesn't have to be. And it is there to help us build muscle, okay? And I'm not going to break the science down because I really want to just stay informal like this, to where it's like, yeah, just take the advice and the learning experience of other folks such as myself that have been through all of this and have seen it over and over and over. There's a lot of things out there when it comes to dieting that I don't believe in, but I follow a core group of people that we follow and read so much literature. We follow everything that involves just keeping things simple, and intermittent fasting, caloric deficit, and walking. For those who can walk, which is a majority of us, to lose body fat and keep it off. I'm not talking about just getting down to, lower percentages of body fat, which is great, because if you're at high levels of body fat, that means you have fat where it doesn't need to be. You have, having all that fat around your organs, on the sides, the front, and the back is just, over time, not good. In the 30s, 40s, going into 50s. So again, guys, like the video, please follow, forward this to somebody that you love. I curated a list of items that you may love here as well, that I have utilized for years. But I'll talk to you soon.